Hey guys, Lukey here, coach of your Allvine City Beacons and DPDL Season 6. Hope you're ready for it. This is going to be my review video, or I guess preview video. I'm going to review my draft for this season and then going to do a brief overview of the other teams and what I think of some of them. So let's get right into it. I've been waiting for this for months. I've been really excited. I've had a number of different teams that I wanted to roll with. And what I ultimately ended up with was a squad that definitely feels very me, but had some real surprises at the top. I definitely never expected to end up with a Flygon as my 18-point Mon, but it just kind of went from there. So, for the last couple of seasons, I've definitely had some themes and some general trends that I try to go for. And so what I'm going to do is go through each of my draft picks, just tell you sort of what the rationale was and how they kind of hit some of the things that I'm looking for in a draft mon. So as I was team planning, I always struggle with the 18 pointers. I figure, you know what? Look at the supporting mons and the low tiers that I want to try out or that I'm comfortable with, and then just see what happens and what falls to me in the first round. And I ended up with pick number 10, and that's usually pretty ass. And you look at the tier list, all kinds of options. We'll ignore the auction mons here, but absolutely the power level once again spiking up. Not necessarily significantly. I don't think there's anything truly broken, with maybe a couple of exceptions. But definitely, now this is more like the NU tier in Gen 9 in terms of power level, which I think at this point, and if you follow Smoke Singles, it feels like a mid tier. But at the same time, in the grand scheme of national decks, it's still very much low tier, but on the fringes. And I thought for sure going into the draft that Flygon would not fall to me at 10. I was going to be looking at something else. And then what do you know? Guys have different ideas about what they want. A couple of Terra Captain went second overall. The first overall pick's already been traded. Ryan had a stroke. And then we get into some actual serious R1 picks where guys are picking things that are actually good, and then Quite Gold pulls out Bramblegas, and I'm like, all right, Flygon. For any sports fans, anybody that follows North American sports, there's the draft is a big deal, and one of the key. Hi, Freya. Can you be quiet? That's my dog, Frey. She's having a rough day. One of the keystones of drafting in professional sports is you always take the best player available. Freya, I swear to God. And in this case, while it doesn't apply one-to-one to Mons, Flygon was absolutely the best Mon left on the board. Freya, shut the fuck up. And in it comes. And I used Flygon last year in a high tier league. It was a Terra Captain. It was absolutely broken. It ended up being the team MVP, and it was picked up mid-season. And Flygon absolutely checks all the boxes. We're talking roll compression. We're talking pretty decent power, pretty decent speed, priority, hazards, and because it's national decks, even hazard removal, although I don't foresee Flygon ever coming as a defogger. But this thing looks like, at least before the auction mons, kind of like the apex predator in this league. And to be able to get that 10th overall is tremendous value. And, I'm really, really lucky. So all of a sudden, this thing is what I'm building around. And, really the main things with Flygon: hates fairy types. Its typing is good, but it has some drawbacks. In particular, it's a dragon type that does not resist water and is neutral to grass. which are two things that I kind of want. So my team is going to be trying to address those things later. But also, first round ends, Lord Serenoa spends, 60% of his budget on his R1 pick, and he spent 80% of his budget just in the first 2 rounds. So, things come back and not much else has moved off the board. And so for me, this was one of the mons that I've been looking at drafting for a while. Round 2, I picked Bronzong. Why Bronzong? Well, for one, if you're just looking at my round 1 pick, the hardest counter to Flygon that exists is Bronzong. Bronzong walls anything that Flygon wants to do, I guess, except maybe like a special fire type set. I don't really know. But basically, I get the Apex Predator's #1 counter off the board, other than maybe Galarian Weezing. And the other part is I've been wanting to use Bronzong. I always like to pick something from teams that I've lost to. And in the last 2 seasons, I have lost 3 matches, and 2 of them have been to coaches that have Bronzong, including my boy Nixie in round 1 of last season. So I like Bronzong's roll compression. Right off the bat, it gives me 2 ground immunes, which is not like super amazing in low tier, but is a nice bonus. And basically gives me that steel type. It gives me the thing that's going to eliminate any of the fairies that are running around. Not that there's many. It gives me a real sturdy wall. Bronzong doesn't have a pivoting move, but it is still a good pivot. It's flexible in that it can be run purely as a wall. Can be run offensively. It has Trick Room for speed control, which turned out to be more useful than I expected based on my team speed tiers. Physical, special, whatever you want. Bronzong is just sort of a catch-all, and it really, really does well into a lot of the top Pokemon in the tier. Downsides, of course, it's very passive. So looking at my team, although I have a terrific fairy check and remover in Bronzong, Flygon, I guess Flygon does resist fire, but I did have my Terra Captain planned already in Decidueye, and I'll get to them. But common weaknesses there include ghost types and dark types, especially between Decidueye and Bronzong. So how do I solve that? Well, I went for the best mon in the tier at shutting those things down, and that's Skuntank. And Skuntank I've had my eye on for a few seasons. Boss grabbed it right before me last season, and I believe it was Zam. Yes, Zam grabbed my boy Bombardier right before me in the 3rd round, because it was definitely on the list. But Skuntank just fills a whole lot of roles. Again, the things that it has over Bombardier, it's slightly faster, I believe, like 1 or 2 points. It can actually run mix sets, and although it's weak to ground, I have 2 fantastic teammates in Bronzong and Flygon that make that immunity, or make that weakness not a problem. It's my heavy Sucker Punch user, and while Skuntank does not have any pivoting moves, it does get hazards. It gets Toxic Spikes, and it's a T-Spikes Absorber, which is not necessary for my top 2 guys, but the rest of my team happens to be grounded, and that's just kind of a nice perk. Also, Skuntank, despite its kind of weird stat spread, if you specialize in its bulk, it can be really bulky, really, really good at that. It can handle a lot of the strong offensive special attackers in the tier, particularly the psychic types that are running around. And it's a dark type because of its poison typing. It maintains that immunity to psychic, but it also is neutral to the fairy coverage that a lot of these mons run. And Skuntank felt even more prescient when near the end of the draft, James nabbed Hoopa in the last Mon auction, which is just an insane cracked wall breaker and while Skuntank isn't a perfect counter to it, at least in terms of its special attacking set, Skuntank is the best check that exists. So that felt kind of nice. You see new mons enter the tier, and you're like, okay, good. I have a game plan for that. And in round 3, getting those key utility mons, those key plug the holes on your squad, is good, and I wanted to spend high points on it. So round 4, I grabbed my Terra Captain, and that's Decidueye. I have used Decidueye before. I actually realized when I was DMing with Bombi that I had used Decidueye against him in a Gen 8 mid-tier league that we ran here. I guess that would have been 3 years ago. And that team sucked ass, and I'd forgotten about that. And I forgot that Decidueye kind of sucks, but from last season, I noticed that it was a new Terra Captain. I wanted to draft it, but then Delphox fell to me, and I kind of changed my plans. But I see the potential with Decidueye. Let's talk about its really good traits. One, it's a really good mixed attacker. It can specialize in either physical or special offense. It can pivot. It has priority. It has the kind of typing that also I think really benefits from Terra, and it gives it a lot of opportunities either for free turns or for setting up, or if it's being used defensively to come in and check something, because it has a useful defensive typing, but it often wants to be able to shed those weaknesses temporarily. And not a lot of things can handle the Ghost Stab in low tier. And just a mon that I was really excited to use. I've actually never used Decidueye in a playthrough of Sun and Moon, but it's a mon that's just really grown on me. So we're through 4 rounds of the draft. It starts to come back around for round 5. And at this point, a lot of points have already been spent on the board. Guys were going crazy for the auctions. And to be fair, Omerta really outdid himself here. And basically every mon, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, was worth 18 points, which most people were spending. And it was just banger after banger. And what it did was it took a lot of the points off the board, but also, to the extent that the speed tiers in low tier are raised this year, a lot of the fast mons were gone. And I decided I needed to get some kind of speed. I needed something faster than Flygon's base 100. And, even though I've already got priority, so I'm starting to shore that up a bit, I want some natural speed. And at this point in the draft, with so many points off the board, guys tend to start targeting the good, cheap, low tiers. And I'm sure people will be like, what the fuck? Like, Perugly is not a good, cheap, low tier. And I disagree. I think for 3 points, this thing is so much more valuable. I used Persian last year at 7 points because I couldn't get Perugly, and I think Persian is pretty much inferior. You lose the power boost from Technician on its fake out sets, but Perugly, 112 speed, pretty decent, good enough attack. Fake out, return, knockoff, U-turn. Basically the only set that it needs to run, and it does it really well. And sure, it's a shallow move pool, but there's a lot of utility in that. This thing is going to get chip damage. It's going to come in, it's going to knock something down, it's going to remove an item, it's going to pivot out. Also, 2 really useful abilities for this team. For one, Defiant, great ability, makes Perugly's mediocre attack actually threatening if if something comes in to try and check it that way. But also on this team, Thick Fat particularly works well with Decidueye. It gets a ice and fire resistance. It has a ghost immunity. Those are 3 of Decidueye's 5 weaknesses. And so it's a natural little partner there. And not that Perugly is going to be shutting down fire and ice types because it's got pretty poor bulk, but Thick Fat at least allows it, if I want it to come in, live a hit, do what it needs to do, and get the hell out of there. So I wanted to lock it down, and especially as the rounds go on, guys lose points. Those cheap low tiers become more important. And also, I realized with so many options on the board, especially in terms of mid to high point mons, that I was going to have a lot of points at the end to go shopping. So come back around to round 6, and I pick up Comfey. Comfey is the only returning member from last year's squad. It was a mon that I think I was on record last season saying I didn't get the most out of. But when it came and it needed to do something, it put in a lot of work. Draining Kiss, Triage, Priority is just so good. It's such a fail-safe. And the cool thing about Comfey is, at least on paper, it doesn't need to run Triage if it wants to go supporting. It gives me Heal Bell. It's a pivot, it's a defogger, it's a setup sweeper. It's got a lot of things it can do, and it finishes ideally, I think, the fantasy core here with Flygon and Bronzong. And if it's not running Triage, it's still decently fast. And for Decidueye, it's a great knockoff absorber. That to the extent that there are good dark and fighting types running around, it's something that can come in and really check those easily. So going back to the well with Comfey, I like to draft all new teams each season, but this one just felt too good and too good of a partner with Decidueye to say no to. So round 7, we're getting towards the end of the draft, and all people are already starting to be done, and I've got 5 picks left. So I'm trying to sort out what I think is the most important in terms of what I need versus what are things that I think I can get later. And in particular, with the amount of points on the board, my focus was getting my lower point guys now and then having the luxury to spend more points later. It didn't quite work out that way, but at least as we were getting to that point in the draft, that was my thinking. And so Magmar. Magmar's been on my radar for a while. I also really wanted to use Magmortar, but this season it just felt like, spending big on a fire type wasn't really what I wanted to do. I mean, my team struggles generally with steel types. However, that said, I mean, Flygon's got Stab Earthquake, so it wasn't a huge need. Although I certainly considered Mons like Pyroar to give me some more natural speed. But what I went with Magmar is, it's got really fun stats. It's got good attack and special attack. It's got a decent speed tier of 95. So if it's going to be run defensively with sorry guys, Freya's just very upset at nothing. If it wants to go defensive with Eviolite, it can do that. It can melt steel types. It's another fairy resist, which is nice for Flygon. It has a lot of really cool traits that I valued and I wanted to try out. And in particular, Freya, can we be cool? So in terms of traits that I look for, in Nat decks, Magmar gets Teleport. There's a pivoting move. Not a great one on Magmar, but at least it has the option. It gets Flame Body, something to punish switches, something that I really like. And also, I believe it also gets Vital Spirit, which, given that Amoonguss is now running around, I feel like is suddenly more relevant. It's got priority in Mach Punch. It's got Belly Drum, so it can swing from both wings. It's not physically very strong, but on a team where I've got Bronzong always floating around, it's not a huge deal. So it just shores up, my weakness a bit to steel types and gives me another option. Again, the theme this season, really a lot of Pokemon that can swing from either wing, and it'll keep guys guessing. Round 8, I grabbed my secondary Terra Captain and my mascot pick, Ampharos. And in the past, I have tried to use Ampharos. Obviously, he's the mascot of my team. That will probably never change. He's one of my favorite Pokemon ever. But in draft, he generally sucks because he is a slow electric type. Electric types do not have much utility in terms of their defensive uses. But on this team, I think it fits. And also, I think this is the right kind of team to bring it as a Terra Captain. And let me explain. So in terms of its base typing, my team, as you can see, only has one other flying resistant Bronzong. And one of my goals with trying to build around Bronzong is to try and make sure that it is supported and it's not going to get overwhelmed, because that's something that can easily happen to a Bronzong. So having that means that I'm not immediately dead in the water if somebody decides to bring bird spam. Not that I see too many uber strong brave birders floating around here in the league. But there are at least a couple, and Ampharos can be a good check to them. Static, another way to punish switches. And in terms of Terra, what Ampharos really lacks is coverage. Its coverage move pool is really poor. I don't like Focus Blast because I don't like 30% chance that my plan doesn't work out. And that's usually its main way of hitting ground types and other things that it can't normally hit. It's got Dazzling Gleam, it's got Dragon Pulse, but it's pretty slim pickings. With Terra, I can patch that up, and Ampharos goes from a slow but strong and bulky electric type to one that all of a sudden has a number of options, and I'm leveraging its 500 plus base stat total in really hopefully creative ways. And recently have been playing an overused team on the OU ladder on Showdown that features Ampharos, and I absolutely love the set and what it can do. And it's out on the internet somewhere, not by me, but because I stole it from a YouTuber. But it has the potential because of that really strong base special attack, and defensively it's a slow pivot that I think can really help some of my mons get in. So round 9, I have 24 points at this point. Omerta is calling me out for being a pussy and not bidding on bidding as many points as I probably should have for what ended up being Hoopa. But at this point, I had my plan. I had the things that I still wanted to shop for, and I didn't really want to deviate from that. And so I knew, because I did the same thing last season, there aren't many great water types in low tier, at least at this level. You look at teams, some teams don't even have a good water type. They're using NFEs or, there's Swampert, but Gastrodon I don't even think got drafted. So there's not many. And so one of the things I did before the season is I went through and I just started scouting and reading the Smogon pages for all of these 10-point and under water mons. I always had my boy Samurott in the back of my mind, but I wanted to try something different. And what I landed on was a mon that I think Omerta actually dropped down in points this season, and that's Prinplup. And Prinplup, yes, it's not fully evolved. Yes, it lacks Empoleon steel typing, but in national decks, Gen 9 national decks specifically, Prinplup gets all of the best things that it's ever had put onto one moveset, whereas many of them, are blocked off from previous generations. Its move pool's a little bit lighter in Gen 9, but it gets Roost in Gen 9, which is great, but it doesn't get Stealth Rock, and it doesn't get Toxic, and it doesn't get Scald. And the other big thing that it gets is competitive, and suddenly Prinplup's pretty mediocre, I think 81 base special attack. If it drops a stat for any reason from an opponent, now it's an offensive threat. It's something that can do a little bit of damage. But mainly for Prinplup, and looking at my roster, I'm not going all in on hazards this season like I have in the past. But my only rockers at this point in the draft are Flygon and Bronzong, and then Skuntank has T-Spikes. And I want to avoid a scenario, because I've been in it in the past, where my main attacker aka Flygon, does not have to put up rocks. I think that's a poor use of your 18-point mon. So Prinplup is the only water type in the tier that gets both defog and stealth rocks. And that niche that it occupies, plus its pretty good base typing of water, allows it to just be a bulky asshole. It can spread status with Scald and Toxic. It gets flip turn this gen, so that it doesn't have to be super passive. And so it's customizable. It fills a need on the team, and while it can be passive, and I have to be careful about that, it's at least the kind of bulky water that makes a lot of sense on this team. And so heading into the last round, round 10, I notice Omerta puts the auction for the magical vial or whatever it was. And at this point I thought, well, I really want Passimian because I have all these points left. I have 20 points. And I figure I'll get Passimian, and then I'll get like one of the low tier grass types, like Quilladin for spikes and a backup water resist. And then I started doing the math in terms of how many people had points left. And I actually saw that if I bid 5 points at that point, mathematically I could not lose. So I did that, and I didn't need to because Zam took Illumise. And so that didn't even matter. He didn't have enough points to beat me anyway. And so I get the vial, or I guess I know that I'm going to get the vial, and I assume based on the wording that it's not a Pokemon because you have to have at least 1 point left. So I assume it's like a perk. And I'm looking at it. I want a fighting type, and I really want another water immunity. Ryan had sniped Maractus, and as upsetting as that was, it was like, all right, it's a 3-point water immune spiker. Whatever. Maractus isn't great. But then I saw a Toxicroak. Omerta loves it. It's kind of slept on, and it ticks a lot of the boxes for me. Again, great priority, swings from both sides. It's got an average speed tier, but with good priority. It's not a huge deal. And that water immunity just opens up a lot of possibilities for it to pivot. It gets Baton Pass, but it's not really going to want to use that. So Toxicroak, and then I get the vial, and it's clear that it should be my third Terra Captain. Toxicroak has a good typing offensively and defensively, but there are 2 real situations I can think where it would love to Terra. One, to get out of a really bad matchup that I think it's going to be in, or 2, to give it an extra turn to set up and maybe abuse its typing vis-a-vis dry skin, because that is possible. And so even though I give up some power versus Passimian, and I give up a really good U-turn Scarfer that probably patches up a lot of my speed issues, Toxicroak was it. And I'm really excited to try this out. It's been on my list for a while. It's got great synergy other than a shared fire weakness with Bronzong. And, the big perk is I'm the only guy in the league gets to roll in with 3 Terra Captains. And the thing is, all 3 of my Terra Captains are bringable and they're good. And so there's going to be times at Team Preview where guys are going to see my team. They're going to see the Terra typings, but I'm going to have 3 different options. And, that just opens up so much flexibility in team building and game planning that for me, it doesn't make any sense to trade back up to Passimian because I don't think any of my other low tiers, provide the same amount of utility there. So last mon, quick, Glalie. I was kind of weak to flying types, and Glalie's not stopping anything offensively or defensively, but Freeze Dry is kind of nice. It's got mid-ass stats, but one of the things I struggled with last season was good leading. And Glalie, if I want it to, can be a fantastic lead in terms of getting spikes up and killing something or damaging something, or just getting my game off on the right foot and having the option to have spikes. So At 3 points, I've loved Glalie. I've wanted to use it. I would love to try it in a lower power level to see what it can do. But on this team, it fills a niche, and for a mon that is going to come once or twice, what more do you want? Okay, so there's the squad. I'm really happy with the team. I know that it lacks a little bit in terms of speed and immediate power, but if you look at the moves of my guys, there's an unbelievable amount of priority. I think 8 of the guys here have a legitimate pivot move. Most of them have some priority one way or another. There's a good mix of hazards, although it's not the focus. And while I don't have a spinner, I've got 5 defoggers. So, I really like the options. It's a team that feels very me. I like these mons. If you like your team, you're going to play better. So anyway, thanks. That's enough rambling for now, and probably spilling secrets. Let's do a quick rundown of some of the other teams. And let's just start at the top with the guy that had the first overall pick. He's new to our league, Warped Closet. He's been lighting up the chat with their funny banter, and also your very sincere innocence. And while this team has undergone quite the change in the grace period, and it definitely for the better. All I can say about this squad is it is a masterpiece. There are 2 grass types, 3 water types, 2 poison types. The type chart on this thing is outrageous. Somehow I think it's more balanced than I think people might give it credit for. There aren't a lot of super strong flying types around, but that's going to be a problem for this team. I think it's better than the rain concept he originally went with, because it was Pelipper was number 1. But there's a regen mon, which is always great. Love those. There's a decent mix of hazards. He's got good removal, obviously. Drampa is a beast of a Terra Captain. Big issues with this team, obviously, speed. Nothing on this team is fucking fast. Something is coming with a choice scarf or your brain dragon dance Lapras. I don't know. The team's very bulky. You're going to take hits. Welcome to the league, and I hope you have a lot of fun. I hope everybody's really nice to you. You're definitely. This is going to be a fun team. And you might be able to surprise people based on not knowing your style because you're new, and also the unconventional approach that you might take. And otherwise, I hope you have a good time. I don't know, based on some of the missing pieces with the team, how much success there's going to be. So second overall, Koriki, he... went with Lurantis, which is a pretty nasty Terra Captain. Obviously, contrary, Superpower, Leaf Storm, Terra Blast, Stellar. It's got a number of roles it can fill. It's, I think, a really underrated defogger, and obviously it has that snowball potential, and it's bulky. It's a grass type that you don't actually have to worry too much about its ability to hit things. Because it's 1 or 2 moves away from running away with the game. This team, there's a good mix of speed and bulk. There's some fun hazard ideas with Glimmet. This is a really well-rounded team. What I would say is, while it's got speed, I think there might be a couple of speed tier issues sort of between Floatzel and Kadabra. And the problem with both of them is they're not mons that you're going to slap a choice scarf on, and so you're going to have to decide who's getting the scarf and how you're going to deal with speed control each week. But overall, Kariki's a very experienced player, always has success. This team hits all of the right food groups, so definitely in the mix this season. And I'm pretty sure another new player, Liam, the Tottenham Hot Scissors. scissors. um, so Liam did the right thing and took what he thought was the best mon on the board, and that was Cyclizar. And all through the draft, and even with some of his trades, although, I mean, Slowbro was kind of a sus trade for Eldegoss, um, but gives you that regen core. This is a really dangerous team on paper. Takes a lot of underrated mons, takes a lot of roll compression. Like, my God, Cyclizar, Tinkaton, Talonflame, all mons that can be brought a number of different ways. Palisand, really great. Clough, I think super underrated and a great Terra Captain, and I want to draft it. And maybe I had the team with Decidueye to use it. But I think it's a mon that can really put in work. Luxray, I mean, it's always an intriguing Terra Captain on paper. It's usually ass in practice, but, definitely excited to see what you can do. Again, that regen core. You've got some interesting pivots with Zoroark and Frogadier. So Zoroark alone just means that you have to really come at this and prepare in a certain way, and the mind games are useful. Oh, I guess Ryan has 3 Terra Captains. He doesn't have a legitimate poison type. I'm sorry, Grimer. And Simisage is a mon that exists. So Ryan are again 10 out of 10 logo as a long-term Penguins fan myself. That's sick. The Robo Penguin with the Piplup. 10 out of 10 logo. This team is a fucking hot mess. Ryan was saying throughout the draft, and yes, he does have 3 Terra Captains. One of them's Boldor, so whatever. But he was saying throughout the draft, like, just trust me, I'm cooking. But the recipe started to go wrong from pick 1. I mean, Electros is a great mon, especially in low tier. Don't really know what it's trying to achieve when you also have Magneton. I mean, Electros can go Fizz Def, and I guess you want Magneton's resistances, but, like, it's a choice. Scyther, great mon, underrated. Appleton, DPDL's favorite boy. Great as a Terra Captain. I think that solves a lot of problems with Appleton. Quillfish Asui is a great glue mon. This team is full of, like, glue mon that have a lot of utility. There's just utility everywhere. Shedinja, Sableye, Maractus. It kind of seems like, because when he sniped Maractus, I was like, you fucker. And adding another grass type like that, and I mean, the water resist is helpful because you've only got one other, and he's 4 times, because he's with Thick Fat, he's 2 times, but you've got one, but the spikes are nice. But I think legitimately Ryan is trying to plan a chlorophyll Maractus sweeper set with Torkoal, which is definitely a choice. I just don't know why you bring a Sunsetter and then as the, like, look at me cook, draft like the 20th best chlorophyll mon. That's definitely a choice. So Ryan is almost always on the bleeding edge of draft ideas and cooking, other than the unnecessary shot at our homeland, Omerta, I'm looking forward to seeing what he'll do. Then we got my brother-in-law, Matt, my boy, Stoned Edge, Timeless logo. And this is his first full season in DPDL. I know he's really excited. And I got to be honest, Matt, you had a great draft. Your first 4 picks, I mean, you spent a lot of your budget, but, like, look at what you got. You got Broken Ass Amoonguss. This is an overused Caliber mon floating around in low tier because, we can still use Sport. And it's a Regenerator mon, and it's going to last forever. And the only thing that hurts Amoonguss down here is that its weaknesses are more common. You've got Tauros Blaze, which is a top tier mon here. Great speed tier, although I guess it gets a little worse every season. But that fire and fighting stab. Also, the boys were loving just that it's, these 2 picks. He definitely didn't intend it that way, but they're so on brand with the Stoned Edge theme. I love it. Swampert, to get Swampert in round 3, there's your bulky water, there's your bulky ground type. This thing's a beast. It's the best water type in the tier. and it gives you so many options in your Firewater Grass core. Like, it's so sick. Heliolisk, another just banger pick. Great speed tier, hits hard, is an electric type that can obliterate grounds if you're not careful because it's got that good coverage with surf. Um, Definitely a mon that I had on my list. Because of it also gets dry skin. It's a backup water immune, which is always handy. Really the only area where I think his team kind of lacks is with the Terra captains. I mean, Masquerain is a quiver dancer, and getting out of that cock awful bug flying typing is great, but it's something to watch for, and the web support is kind of nice because his team is fast, but there are faster teams out there. Armaldo, he wanted a spinner because his only real removal was the deterrence from Xatu. So Armaldo's not great, but there is at least one rain team running around. It's a swift swimmer that you can take advantage of that with. And Armaldo is like a cool and good Pokemon that wants to get out of its typing. So having Terra Blast is great. Mabostiff, which led the league in kills a few seasons ago. Great pickup at 13. He made the funniest fucking joke about it too in the draft chat. And, I know he originally wanted Absol, but I have to agree with you, Matt. You made a better pick. Mabostiff is better than Absol, and I won't hear anything else. Bringing back Xatu, hopefully you are using Xatually, and, great sort of support mon, and especially on this team when your big two are so weak to Psychic. Dracloak, I loved Dracloak last season. I think there's more to be squeezed out of it, and it gives him a ghost type, gives him a dragon type. Not a great defensive mon, but another good speed tier, a pivot, screens, all that fun stuff. And Swirlix, he's probably not going to bring. It's not a serious fairy type, but at least it's there if you think someone's coming in hot with a dragon type. Zam and the Georgia Gherkins. This I think would be my pick for the most underrated draft. Zam, I think, is also new, and really, really cool ideas going on with this team. I mean, Slowbro Galler, did he? No, you made Lycanroc your Terra Captain. I think that was a mistake. Slowbro Galler, I think, would be far better to go along with Illumise, who's not really a Terra Captain. I guess maybe you want the damage boost, but a great start with Slowbro Galler, Tauros Aqua, and then a mon that really supports both of them, which is Bombardier. I loved Bombardier last season. It sets hazards, it pivots, it hits real fucking hard with stab, sucker punch, and knockoff. Great mon, and just it goes so well with those two. Slowbro can take on the fairy types that Bombardier doesn't like. It takes the ground hits and the psychic hits, and that's a really strong 3. I thought Clefairy was kind of a weak pick here. It's bulky, and it's got Magic Guard, but like Comfey was still on the board at the time. Lycanroc, again, I don't think it's a great Terra Captain, but prove me wrong. Again, great speed tier. Copperaja was a mon I had on my list. I know it's a James approved mon. Really, really fun, and one of the best steel types, and good for you for getting it. Serena, I think, is overrated, but it's a grass type. It's a spinner. It can hit hard. Camerupt, I love Camerupt on this team. I love Camerupt as a mon. I don't love it as a competitive mon, but it adds a useful profile to this team where you might actually be able to get the most out of Camerupt here, and I'm excited to see it. And Rotom and Lumai is both really useful utility. Kanaba is back to stall. Motherfucker sniped Machoke on me. I definitely had it on my list to get a cheap but effective fighting type. This is a really, really interesting squad. It's super fucking bulky. The bottom 2 mons don't exist. Oricorio, I think, is kind of whatever on this team. Rotom Fan as a Terra captain is unreal. And then he's got, one all-out fast attacker, which is Zygarde 10%, and that thing is a broken little asshole, that's here to ruin the dreams of Bronzong. It's Kanava, get ready. You better be bringing hazards. You better be bringing an answer to get rid of Tentacruel. And you better be bringing your faster mons that can take a hit. You're going to need them. Cavern, our defending champ, back in with the tip kisses. Cavern last season won with a pretty unconventional looking team, and he's done the same thing here. He's brought back 2 of the mons that he had, maybe even 3. Did he have Dedenne? But Tatsugiri and Braviary in terms of mons that we have to respect. And this is just a really nasty top 3, 4, 5. Meowstic there for the support. Tatsugiri as a Terra captain, I think, is tremendous. But again, those first 3, like, how do you game plan? They synergize really well together. Braviary's probably coming Scar for bulk up to mess you up. Venusaur lets him handle any Sun Team shenanigans. And Emboar, well, I think Emboar is overrated. I think he's done a really good job drafting around it and covering its weaknesses. He's got webs, he's got removal, he's got spikes. And even Thievel, I think, is a mon that's underrated and could put in work, especially with Stakeout. Cool team. Cavern should not be taken lightly, even if other teams have a bit more pizzazz to them. Quite Gold. This is a real Quite Gold team. It is just, it's full of murderers. To get Tyrantrum for 7 points, that sucks. That really sucks. And especially looking at his team, I don't think he made any moves in Grace. So that was his last mon, his last 7 points. And it just ends up being like perfect type-wise and synergy-wise for his squad is just unreal. And it gives him a fantasy core that I think is only rivaled by mine. Other people might think it's, his is better. Tyrantrum's just such a fearsome breaker, and then Cobalion and Rabombi are both really good supporting threats. And Rabombi can be quite dangerous offensively at this level as a quiver dancer. And then he's got Seismitoad and Dunsparce for some heft, and Houndoom as a Terra captain is real nasty, and that's probably the kind of attack boost that it needs. So definitely among the best teams on paper for sure. We've talked about my team enough. My boy Nixie, after he ruined my undefeated season in the playoffs, he's back, and what a fucking team. Nixie's at the point in his draft career where he's finally starting to figure out his style and what works for him. And that lasted legitimately, I think, 1 pick. Because he got Terra Rhydon, who I think is super underrated. It's an S tier in PU for a reason, and I think really slept on. And in draft, it is that electric community that can go anywhere in your lineup and use any Terra type and sort of carry that around and hit like a fucking truck and take hits like a champ. Normally, I would think Virizion sucks as an 18-point mon, but for what he has, again, right on big weakness to grass, big weakness to water, and in particular, really doesn't want to take a knockoff. Well, Virizion with Justified comes in, takes a knockoff, takes nothing from it, and all of a sudden it's at +1. And even though Virizion's only got 90 attack, it's got like 108 speed. That thing is really scary. And Quillfish and Delphox, I think in that sense, he's got a really, really good top 4. There's a lot of speed. There's a lot of bulk. There's utility there. There's spikes. And it's almost as if Omerta knew what he was going to get in an auction, because he apparently suggested Morpeko, who, again, I think defensively kind of fits here. As a dark type, it's Nixie appreciates the psychic immunity. His draft is looking real ground weak to this point, but it gets better. Glaceon, we've talked about this a lot. Him and I, it kind of operates like a low tier Kyurem, especially with Terra. And if he can patch up some speed control with the team, Glaceon could be an absolute menace to society. It's already so naturally strong. And then I think Nixie, maybe next to Tyrantrum, got the steal of the auction. In 27 points for two Mons was Mismagius and Yanmega. So he gets speed. He gets his two ground immunes to help balance out his team. He gets a speed boost Mon. He gets a special setup sweeper. His special offense is so good. You could literally just start Mismagius, Yanmega, Delphox, hyper offense, just start wailing away at guys. And especially because things like Snorlax, things like Florges were not drafted, almost nobody has any response to all three of these. The offensive pressure is insane. And, when I said earlier he's starting to find his style, and this team sort of fell apart very quickly from that, it's because all of a sudden he's got a very fast, very frail set of attackers. And it's going to be interesting to see how he does with that. And then, of course, to end his draft, Dubwool is a cool defensive normal type as far as those can go. Fluffy's awesome. And Bulletproof is nice. Tinkatuff for the type compression. It's obviously a weak point in his squad, but, it's something you can live with. And then a 1-point meme Mantike for water immune. And then my boy James, he's back. I'm so excited James is back. In terms of guys in the league that I've never beaten, I think he's on top of my list. Part of my problem is, one, James has been semi-retired for a while, although I'm glad he's back. And two, at this point, we've talked so much, and I have looked up to him so much as a battler and as a coach, that my style has really started to replicate his, as I have shamelessly stolen many ideas based on teams that he's built before. And, whether or not Apprentice can beat Master this season, we'll see. But what a fucking team. What an absolutely fucked team that is. James, like many of us, looked at 14-point Incineroar and said, this thing is a piece of shit that shouldn't be allowed. But it is, and I'm honestly shocked that nobody else took it. What is only surprising is that he actually didn't tear it, which was possible. Incineroar just solves so many problems. His team, the way he's built his team, just works so well with it. So it's really good support. It's not a 14-point Mon. Galarian Wheezing, James thinks it's broken. I think it's all right. But it has a lot of shenanigans and roll compression, and it's a damn good fairy type, and it's a damn good fighting resist, which is perfect for what he's trying to build. Aerodactyl gives him speed control over just about everything, and a Mon that I had my eye on for a long time. He's brought back his boy, Alolan Exeggutor. This thing can pivot, it can smash things, it can Trick Room. It can do all kinds of things. Its typing works really well with his team. And as a Terra captain, he can either, just send its strength into the stratosphere or allow it to defensively check whatever he wants. Berserker, get ready. He's going to bring Steely, Spirit, Choice Band, Ironhead, and just absolutely tear everybody's asshole apart. And then, of course, Kangaskhan, such a useful utility Mon. It gets a lot back from Nat decks, particularly Return, and his Wish support for his team. Because James's team, really with the exception of Aerodactyl, is quite slow. He has a huge gap in his speed tiers, but he's got a lot of slower, bulky Mons that also get worn down, and Kangaskhan really solves that problem by passing big, beefy Wishes. Mr. Rhyme, a great Pokemon that if you're caught flat-footed can just sweep you. I've been swept by it before. He's brought back Terra Phalanx for Tib. I think it was kind of an interesting option last year. I can't remember who ran it. And then Palpitoad, really the only weakness with James' team is that he's had to compress water and ground into one roll. That said, Palpitoad, not bad for 2 points. And you can live with it because you got Hoopa for 16, who is the strongest special attacker in the tier. Barely anybody has a defensive answer for this thing, and it's going to ruin lives. So we're almost up to an hour here, so I want to try and get through the last 4 fairly quickly. Full-time nerd, that's Knighted, the Bucharest Scolopedes. With the theme team, originally I had Politoed, but then traded with Warp Closet for Pelipper, so you get the better range setter, but then also gets Pincurchin for your electric terrain setter. So he then later made a traded away Magnezone so he could get a Lola Raichu. So all of a sudden, this team looks very hyper offensive. You have you've got 2 really good Swift Swimmers in Poliwrath and Ludicolo that you have to prep for. You then have 2 electric terrain abusers in Sceptile, who he decided not to make a Terra Captain, which I think might be a mistake. I think Poliwrath does just fine on its own, and Lanoon Galar is not a real mon. I guess you had no choice. As much as I love Lanoon Galar, it's too weak for this level. On one hand, it is all in on really 2 ideas that can be run together and that synergize surprisingly well. On the other hand, if you have a team that can solve one or both of these ideas, you will destroy them. So one of the I don't think it's by any means the best team in the league, but definitely going to be the most all or nothing team. Either you're going to, I think, destroy this guy, or you're going to get run over. Justin is back with the Alabama Alakazams, and Justin's got it's a cool draft. I think he really saved it with his mid to late picks. I think Magnezone is a better fit here than Alolan Raichu, if for no other reason than to get at least a decent steal. Terra, Avalugg, Hisui, and Shiftry are both really cool ideas. Shiftry really needs Terra, and Avalugg, Hisui definitely wants it. I tried to use it a few seasons ago. Wasn't great. Really, I think your draft got better because you get arguably the best fire type in the tier in Ninetales. This thing's super underrated. So now you have a Sun mode, and you've got a really good Chlorophyll abuser. You've got great utility in Gligar and Marini and Spidops. You've got an underrated Miltank. There's a lot of defensive utility here. I think the weakness in your draft is that you spent your first 2 picks on Hitmontop, who's not great, and Uxie, who, even though it's new this season, I'm not convinced it's going to be, all that great. But I love the other ideas. I think having some weather without being reliant on it is really good. Nixie's balanced Sun team last season, I think, was evidence of that. Where Sun is an option that you have to prep for because of Ninetales and Shiftry. But if you don't bring it, now all of a sudden, he's got a Flash Firemon, and you've invested resources into trying to stop an oppressive style. So I like this team. The top end of the draft is a little bit wonky, but pretty cool. Greedy Dog went from last place to the finals with his broken-ass team. And you could see how broken it was last season because his big 3 were all 18-pointers this season. And this team, definitely more balanced. It's got some really cool ideas. It's got a lot of cool utility. I think Bruxish is really slept on. And as a Terra Captain, it's really cool just to boost its power. Arbalva, kind of whatever to me, but... Pawmot, Dringalgi. Driftblim's going to be real key when you are taking on the terrain team, for example, because you can try and give them a taste of your own medicine. Dragalge, which I think is a super underrated mon, super good. And while the team is, it does a decent job of supporting this thing. I think Sandslash is like whatever. I didn't like it last season, and you've got some real nice little pivots in Mawile and Lantern and Persian Alola that can help set up what you want to do. So cool team. I'm interested to see what the ideas are in terms of the week-to-week game plan. Is it always going to be Bruxish, or are you trying to get by sort of on the balance? But a real weakness is that this is you only have one Terra Captain you got to worry about. And then our champ from 2 seasons ago, Lord Serenoa and the half chub Trubs. He went mostly all in on Mono Poison, but he won 2 auctions, so he's got Donphan as a ground type, and so jealous that he has it because it's just, unlike Sandslash, it is like the utility ground mon, and at this level, an offensive threat. Although I think honestly, he's clearly, he's going for a meme team. He's handicapping himself. He's trying something different. Stonejourner I think is really cool, and I'd love to see what he can do with it. Grafai is a great Terra Captain. This team is super frickin' water weak. He downgraded Vileplume to Gloom, and I know Tibbs, you're a big Gloom guy, but let's be real here. It's not, it's a big step down. It's more annoying than anything, whereas Vileplume can kind of stand on its own 2 feet no matter what. But at the same time, you've got to focus on, the fact that there's some really good supports here with Grafai, Crobat, Donphan to allow this murderer's row, especially Revavroom, who might be broken for this level, and Salazzle to do their thing. So, I know that Serenoa is going to be just here for fun and memeing around, but this could be a scary team only because there's not a lot of great steel types. He has Psychic covered enough. And he's obviously a great coach and a previous champion, so you have to respect him anytime that you're matching up with him. So anyway, I've been rambling on for far too long. The season's going to start next week. I'm really, really excited. I love my team. I'm win or lose, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not worried about following up on last season, and while I would like to win a playoff round this season, whatever happens, and I'm excited to see new faces, and hope everybody is going to have fun and be kind to the new players. So that's it for this episode. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Maybe it's just ambient noise while you're doing something else on your weekend. But thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you after the season for the season wrap-up.